So today I'm going to be talking about something that is super special to me. I think birth is the most unbelievable thing. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's been the most rewarding thing. The 2 times that I have delivered my babies have been the most special days to me, and they're just like engraved in my memory. I have so many things that I want to say about birth because I think it's so beautiful and I think it's so special. So when I got pregnant, I was super excited. I could not wait to have my little baby. I started thinking about getting the baby here. I was like, dang, what am I gonna do? I have had 2 very different birth experiences. Granted, I did have a single birth and then a twin birth, so that just makes them different from the get-go. But my overall feeling of each birth was so night and day and left me with a completely different feeling. So with my first birth, with my oldest son, Knox, I decided that I wanted to go the unmedicated route. I come from a long line of hippies. My family is super holistic. I was raised on oils and chakras and energy work, and so I just kind of grew up around that environment. I'm the youngest of 5, and the rest of my siblings have all delivered unmedicated, and they really enjoyed their experience. And so that was just like the first thing that kind of put it in my head that that was even an option. So when I got pregnant with my first, I decided I wanted to look more into it. I didn't know anything about birth. And so like the first thing that I read was about the needle being like this long. And that alone, I was like, heck no, I am not getting that needle. And that really was like the kicker for me to start really researching an unmedicated birth and to see if it was something I wanted to do. My first birth with Knox, I was super nervous because I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know how my body was going to handle it. It ended up being an incredible experience. It was one of those things where everything really did go according to plan. And I know that's not the case with everyone, but with my first birth, it was like, I had a birth plan. It was like everything checked off and it was perfect. It was super hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But the overall feeling of it, when he was born, it was like euphoric, and I felt so empowered. And it was like the second he was here, all of my pain was gone. I felt like myself again, and I just held that baby and I just sobbed, and it was the best moment of my entire life. Everyone in the room was sobbing. It was just like the most beautiful thing. With my twins, obviously there was a lot of other factors that were going into it. There were 2 babies. Twins can just be a little bit scary to begin with. And of course, the last month of my pregnancy with them, my baby B flipped breech, which just added another element of being scared. Our birth plan with the twins had like plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Like there were so many things that could happen. And just the overall feeling of that birth was fear. I was so scared. And even when they were like wheeling me to go get my epidural, my legs were like shaking, and I was just like, sorry, I can't stop shaking. I was just like so afraid. Ended up getting an epidural because they thought it was going to be an emergency C-section and they wanted to place one just in case. That was really hard, and I hated it. There was so much fear, and I hate making decisions based on fear. Everything was fine. It wasn't the birth that I wanted. They both were born and they were healthy. My baby A was delivered by my midwife, and then my baby B, of course it was rad. He wanted to be born breech, and so he was just coming feet first, and so they delivered him breech, and it was fine, and neither of them had to be taken to the NICU, which was awesome, and I was so grateful. But even after, while I was holding them, I didn't feel like myself. I felt jittery, I felt shaky, I felt claustrophobic, I couldn't move, and I was kind of panicked, maybe I would describe it as, and I hated it. And I felt guilty because I had these 2 perfect, healthy little babies, but I didn't feel like myself and I didn't feel good. Comparing those two births side by side, I'm like, oh, I am so pro unmedicated birth. I know that they were two different things, but just the overall feeling of the experiences, the unmedicated birth was just so much more empowering for me. And I'm actually glad that I got to experience both so that I could know which way was best for me. And I've learned through those two experiences that an unmedicated birth kind of just suits my body better. A few weeks ago, I had all of you ask me your questions on unmedicated birth. I wanted to know what you wanted to know. I wanted to know what you're curious about. And I got a lot of awesome questions. And I want to answer those all right here. But before I begin answering your questions, I just want to say that there is no wrong way to have a baby. Everybody is different. Every body is different. And every experience is different. Some people love the epidural. Some people love being able to schedule an induction. Some people love just going in and getting a planned C-section. Everyone is so different, and so I would never say that one way is right and one way is wrong. The goal in birth is to bring a happy, healthy baby into this world, and however you need to do that is exactly how you need to do it. I'm just sharing my experiences and why I choose to do it one way, and I'm hoping it will help someone who's maybe interested in an unmedicated birth. So I got a lot of questions about my biggest why. Why would you do an unmedicated birth? If you had the option to not feel the pain, why would you do it? So the number one thing, maybe this is super funny, but I am terrified of needles. And so the first thing that made me start researching unmedicated birth was knowing how big that needle was and how much I did not want to get it. It freaked me out. So I did start doing my research. I wanted to know my other options. Did I have to get that massive needle in my back? And I learned that no, I don't, that you could do it unmedicated. And I wanted to know, okay, well, what would be the benefit of doing that besides not getting a needle in my back? And I was super shocked with all the information that I got. I read a lot of books. I watched a lot of documentaries. I will link those below so that you guys can do your own research and be able to come up with your own opinions on it. But what I found was that medical intervention could cause a lot of problems during birth, and a lot of them were unnecessary. I learned about Pitocin and the effects and the risks that came with getting Pitocin. I learned about C-section rates going up when medical intervention was happening. I learned about the timeline of a hospital and how they want to be able to see as many patients as they can to help a lot of people, but that puts you on a timeline, meaning you come in and if you're there too long, it's like, okay, we need to get things rolling so we can help more people. There were a lot of things that I had no idea about, and I was so glad that I was learning about and educating myself no matter what direction I was going in. After I looked at the side of a medicated birth and the risks that came with it, I started looking at an unmedicated birth and learning about it. And I found that there were way fewer risks involved with an unmedicated birth. It was so cool because I was like addicted to learning about it, and I watched so many videos of unmedicated birth, and it wasn't like junior high anymore where they make you watch a birth and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never doing that. I saw it as the most beautiful thing, and I got like addicted to it. It like put me on this high, and I was like, wow, our bodies know what to do. The first step is just trusting your body and trusting it to know what to do. That's what it is designed to do, is to make babies and to birth them. And it was super empowering to watch these videos of these women giving birth. Our bodies know what to do. My third why, which is another funny one, was that when I started talking about an unmedicated birth, I had a bunch of people come out and told me that I wouldn't be able to do it. People were saying things like, oh, there's no way you're tough enough to do that. The second you get your first contraction, you're gonna be screaming, get me the epidural. I even had a doctor tell me I was crazy and not to be the hero. And I don't know if it's just me, but when someone tells me I can't do something, it makes me want to do it 10 times more. So I kind of had a point to prove, which maybe isn't the best reason, But for me, it was really motivating. And I even remember during my labor when it was getting super hard and I started questioning myself like, oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. Can I do this? I remember thinking, I have to do this because I have to prove these people wrong. The other question that I got asked the very most was, is an unmedicated birth really that painful? People were asking me to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, how painful it is. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's a 10. It is the most painful thing I've ever experienced. In some of the hypnobirthing books that I read, they talked about reaching a hypnosis state where you don't feel any pain. I don't know if I really believe that. If someone can do that, that is awesome. But I was never ever able to reach that state of mind, and it freaking hurt. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I even reached a point where I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And for me, I like being prepared for that. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It requires a lot of work. Which kind of leads me to my next question. What's the worst part? When you go into labor, it kind of starts off small. Sometimes you don't even know if you're really in active labor. And the contractions are just kind of little. And then they start to grow, and then they start to get longer, and then they start to get bigger, and it kind of grows like that. But I found that like my body got stronger as each contraction came. With like a little contraction at the beginning, my body would kind of handle the pain and learn from it, and then get a little bit stronger. So then it was ready for the next contraction that was a little bit stronger too. And my body would deal with it, it would handle it, and get a little stronger. And that's kind of how I like imagined myself throughout my labor. But the worst part of labor for me was my last 20 to 15 minutes. It was super intense. I reached a point where I kind of snapped out of my breathing, and I was like, oh no, I can't do this. Like, I don't know what to do. I know I'm kind of past the point of no return, but I can't do it. It's too hard. And my midwife and Ryan were able to calm me down and have me push probably like 3 more times. And then my baby boy was born and everything was gone. I wasn't in any pain. I was completely myself again. And looking back, it was so funny because I was like, the last 15 minutes when I said I couldn't do it, he was born almost immediately after. And so when you hit that point where you're like, I can't do it anymore, just know that your baby is literally almost here, and all the pain that you're experiencing is about to be gone completely. One question that people asked is, would I get numb for stitches if I needed stitches? So one of the reasons I did choose to have an unmedicated birth was all the stories I heard of women who knew when to push and knew when to not push because they could feel themselves beginning to tear. And that was like a big deal to me because I did not want to tear. And when I was in labor and I was pushing, I could feel my body tell me to stop. I could feel everything, and I could feel that my body wasn't ready to push out a baby yet. If the doctor or my midwife was telling me to push, I would be like, no, it's not. I could feel my body tensing up, and I knew that if I did push, I would tear. And I loved that I could feel that because I was able to give my body a minute to relax and to open, and then I'd say, I'm ready to push, and I would push. So I actually didn't tear, and I contribute that 100% to being able to feel my body. That being said, sometimes you still do tear, and that's okay. And if I did, I would definitely get numb for stitches. People confuse an unmedicated birth with just being able to feel a lot of pain. That's not why I'm doing it, to be like, yeah, look how tough I am. I can go through all this pain. No. The reason I do it unmedicated is because I truly believe that it's a natural bodily function to have a baby. It's not something foreign to my body. It's something my body was literally made to do. But having a needle go in and out of my skin is not a natural bodily function, and I wouldn't want to feel that. Just like I wouldn't want to feel the dentist drilling into my tooth giving me a cavity. That's not a natural bodily function. So if I did tear, I would definitely get numb for stitches. I had someone ask me, what's the scariest part of birth for a first-time mama? I think that the scariest part is just the unknown. You don't know what it feels like. You've never experienced it. You don't know what to expect. You don't know if it's gonna go really fast or if it's gonna take 3 days. It's just The fear of the unknown, I think, is the scariest part. And I felt that with my first birth. I was really scared because I didn't know what to expect. But it was really cool to watch something that I had no idea about and just watch my body take over and know what to do. It was really, really cool for me. Someone asked what were my very top fears of an unmedicated birth. I would say the first one obviously was, is it going to be too painful for me? Am I going to be able to handle it? Pain is just like a scary thing. No one likes to feel pain. But now having gone through it, I love knowing how physically and mentally tough I was able to be through that. And how tough I can be through the next birth. The second thing that I was really afraid of was, what if I just talked up this whole unmedicated birth thing just to be able not to do it? I was scared that I would feel embarrassed or like I failed. But once I held that sweet baby in my arms, nothing mattered. It didn't matter how they got here. I was just so happy that he was safe and he was healthy. My third fear that I just kind of talked about was tearing. I was so scared of tearing, and I still am, and I just pray that it won't happen. My last fear that I have about birth, and I wish I could control this better, but I always kind of have those thoughts of what if in the back of my head. Like, what if something went wrong? Really, like, thought and tried to address my what if questions. I've come to realize that the what ifs don't have to do with me. It's more of, what if something's wrong with my baby? And so an unmedicated birth wouldn't change the health of my baby at all. Still just makes sense to me in this situation. The next topic that I got a lot of questions about, I just kind of wrapped it up into one, is having a support system. A lot of people wanted to know how to get a support system, or who you should surround yourself with, or how important a support system is. I think having a support system is huge. I get that not everyone is on board with an unmedicated birth, and that's okay. But I found during my mental prep for going through an unmedicated birth that I needed to surround myself with people who supported me and who uplifted me and who believed in me. I needed to find people that were positive about what I was about to do, and not to tell me horror stories and not telling me how horrible it is. And it can be kind of hard to find people that will do that for you. My advice is that if you are around people that don't really support an unmedicated birth, that's fine, but maybe just don't talk about it with them. Don't bring it up. Find other things to talk to them about. You can find a tribe of people that do support your decision, and surround yourself with those people, because it's encouraging and it makes you feel like you can do it, and it gives you so much more confidence. With the support system, it really is funny because everyone wanted to know Ryan's thoughts on an unmedicated birth. And you all know I adore my husband. If I could write up the perfect man, it is him. I just like am obsessed with him. But he almost passes out every single time I give birth. So he has a hard time. And if it was his way, he would actually probably prefer the epidural just because it's a lot more calm. We just laid there, we just waited, and then we had babies. It was a lot less intense for him. But he did recognize the recovery was just night and day difference between my first birth and my second birth, that he is so supportive of having an unmedicated birth. And he tells me, like, obviously the decision is yours. You're the one that has to physically go through it. So he's super supportive of whatever I choose. This leads me into my next topic, which is, would you get a midwife? I loved my midwife, like so much. And I don't know if I would have been able to get through my first birth without her. She was so incredible, and she helped me through every single step of the way. But the number one thing that I loved about her was that she didn't just come in and rule the room. She came in and she like grabbed Ryan and would tell Ryan what to do. She'd say, Ryan, place your hands here. Ryan, rub right here. Ryan, rub her neck. I loved that she involved him because he was like a deer in headlights. He did not know what he was doing and he was kind of scared. So I loved that she involved him in the process. So when our baby was born, it felt like something we all worked together to do, and it was super cool. I love that midwives are just super involved in the whole process from the day you get pregnant to weeks after you deliver. They're there. And I love that my midwife was so involved in the whole thing and we became super close. I'm actually really sad because she just retired, and it's been really hard with this pregnancy to know that she won't be there for my next birth, but it will all be okay. People asked about the difference between a midwife and a doula, and if I had a midwife, if I would get a doula. So a midwife is the one that actually delivers the baby. She's the doctor. And a doula is kind of like a hired support system that can talk you through it, that can help you and support you. So I asked my midwife if I should get a doula, and she's super involved in the births that she told me that if I wanted to, I could, but she said that she didn't think I needed one because she totally fulfilled that role for me. Now, if I had a doctor, I would probably get a doula so I could have that person with me the whole time to help me through it. I had a lot of questions about if I would do a home birth or a hospital birth. I prefer the hospital, not because I'm scared, but because I like that the hospital just takes care of me and they pamper me, and I can literally like snap my fingers and they'll bring me grapes. And I like that. My siblings actually deliver at home and they love it. I think you just have to find what is comfortable to you. And for me, being at the hospital is just more comfortable. This is my favorite question. Is it worth it? Yes, it was, it is, it's going to be so worth it. It's the hardest thing I've ever gone through. It's the hardest thing I've ever physically and mentally had to do. But the second I hold that sweet baby in my arms, it is all worth it, and it is so empowering. A lot of preparation is mental prep. I feel so bad for the people that plan on getting an epidural and then end up not being able to get one because that's scary. You weren't planning on that. So preparing mentally is so important. I'll put a link to my blog post with all of the resources and all the books and videos that I watched so that you can go watch them for yourself. But I loved in the Mongan method how it talked about mental prep and it talked about breathing techniques. And one thing that helped me, it's like the biggest visual for me, was that when you feel pain or a contraction or something uncomfortable, we tend to tense up, which actually makes our body not be able to do what it's supposed to do. So when I would start feeling pain, I would close my eyes and imagine that there was a balloon in my stomach, and I would breathe into the balloon and try and have it expand as big as it could and then slowly breathe it out. And that helped me mentally and physically get through my contractions. I love that the Mongan method had lots of little tips and tricks like that. The last question that I got asked was, how did you know you could handle it? I didn't know if I could handle it, but I also didn't know if I could. So I wanted to give my body that chance to see if it could. And I'm so glad I did, because having an unmedicated birth was honestly the best decision. It worked for me and it was so amazing. I am nervous that like at any moment I could go into labor again, and it's a nerve-wracking thing, but I'm so excited and I love talking about this. It's such an empowering thing and I'm so excited to be able to do it again. If you have any other questions, make sure to leave them in the comments and I will make sure to answer them. I'm so glad you guys watched this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Pretty soon, baby girl's gonna be here.